Kim Do-hun stands by the large window, looking out at the rain. He holds a white sheet of paper in his hand. It's the results of a medical examination. He doesn't want this conversation, but he has to have it. Johanna enters the office. She sees his back and realizes something is wrong. Her heart starts beating faster. Dohun turns around. His face, usually strong and confident, is now tense. He doesn't smile. "Sit," he says. "I'll stand," Johanna answers quietly. Dohyun places the paper on the table. He takes a deep breath. "The doctors have given us the final answer. We will not have children. Ever." Johanna knows this. She was at the same reception, but hearing it from him is something else entirely. "My family, my position." He searches for words. "I need an heir. Without an heir, everything loses meaning. Everything I've built." Johanna looks at him. Her light, curly hair seems bright in the dark office. "What are you trying to say?" she asks, although she already knows. "Our marriage has to end," Dohyun says clearly. "I can't give you what you deserve. A family, children." Something fades from Johanna's eyes. The light that was always there when she looked at him vanishes. All that remains is emptiness. "You're leaving me," she says simply. It's not a question, but a statement. "I'm letting you go," he corrects. "You'll have everything. Money, an apartment, a comfortable life. You won't want for anything." "I needed you," she says quietly, "and you only need an heir." These words hit him like a blow. He wants to scream that it's not true, but he can't. His pride and duty to his family won't allow it. "The decision has been made," he says firmly. "Tomorrow my people will help you pack your things." Johanna doesn't cry. She looks at him for a few more seconds, then nods slowly. She turns and leaves the office. The door closes quietly. Dohyun is left alone. He clenches his fists. He just lost the person dearest to him, and he doesn't know how to live with it. The morning after the conversation. The big house is quiet. The servants tiptoe. Johanna wakes up early. She didn't sleep all night. She's leaving today. She dresses in simple, dark clothes. She doesn't take the dresses he gave her. She doesn't take jewelry. She packs only the essentials in one gym bag: comfortable clothes, books, a laptop. Then she goes to the closet and takes out an old photo album. It contains their photos. Happy moments. She puts the album in her bag. Two men in dark suits are waiting for her in the hallway. His men. "Everything is ready," one of them says, not looking her in the eye. Johanna nods. She takes her wedding ring off her finger. It's heavy, with a large diamond. She places it on the shelf in the hallway. The ring lies there alone, gleaming coldly. She doesn't look back at the house. This mansion has always been a beautiful prison for her. She walks out the gates. They close behind her. A black car is waiting outside. Johanna gets into the back seat. The car starts moving. She doesn't look out the window. She looks at her hands. They aren't shaking. The car takes her to a new apartment. Large, bright, expensive. Everything here is new, with no memory of the past. The driver sets down her bag, places an envelope with money and documents on the table, bows and leaves. The door closes. Silence. Johanna goes to the window. The city roars below. She places her palms on the cold glass. And only now, when she's completely alone, do tears stream down her cheeks, quiet, soundless. She slides down to the floor, leans her back against the wall, and closes her eyes. She just needs to be alone. Dohyun sits in his office. He can't work. He can only think about one thing, her. An hour after she leaves, he calls his head of security, Min Seok. Min Seok comes in. He knows what happened. "She left?" Dohyun asks. "Yes, the things have been delivered to the new apartment." Dohyun looks out the window. "I want her under surveillance. Around the clock, discreetly. No one can know, not even her." Min Seok nods. He'd expected it. "Reports on her movements? Contacts?" "Especially contacts," Dohyun says firmly. "If a new man comes into her life, I need to know right away. Everything." "Got it," says Min Seok. "Two people, 12-hour shifts. Observation only. And I hope she's okay. Not a single scratch. It will be done." Min Seok leaves. Dohyun is left alone. He abandoned her, but he can't let go. The thought that she could be with someone else drives him crazy. He needs to know everything about her. That same day, an inconspicuous car pulls up outside Johanna's house. Two men are inside. They're watching the entrance, recording when she leaves and where she goes. They're his eyes and ears, his invisible connection to her. A week passes. Johanna barely leaves the apartment. She sleeps a lot, watches TV, does nothing. But this can't last long. One morning she decides, something needs to change. She needs a job, a purpose. She finds an ad. A small museum of applied arts is looking for an assistant restorer. Johanna has a degree in art history. She calls and arranges a meeting. The museum director is an elderly woman. She looks at Johanna carefully. "Why do you want to work here?" she asks. "I need quiet work," Johanna says honestly. "I like the silence and the beauty of old things." The woman looks at her and nods. She sees the pain in Johanna's eyes and doesn't ask any unnecessary questions. "You're hired. Come back tomorrow." The next morning, Johanna arrives at the museum. It's an old building with high ceilings. It smells of dust, wood, and varnish. It's quiet. Her desk is by the window. Her mentor is the old Master Lee. He is silent and stern. On the first day, he simply gives her brushes, paints, and an old porcelain plate with a crack. "Clean carefully. Take your time." Johanna sits down to work. She concentrates on every crack, every stroke of her brush. There's no room for sad thoughts in this work, only silence, the smell of varnish, and the fragile beauty in her hands. Here, behind the glass window of her new life, she feels safe, at least for a while. A month passes. Johanna has gotten used to her new life. She gets up early, goes to the museum, and works. In the evening, she returns home, cooks a simple dinner, and reads. She doesn't socialize with anyone, only with her coworkers, and even then, not much. Two men in a car follow her every day. They see her routine. Morning, to the museum. Evening, home. No meetings, no friends, especially not men. Every week, Minseok brings Dohun a report. Everything is calm, Minseok says. She works, comes home, doesn't see anyone. Dohyun nods. He reads the report. It's all detailed. What time she left, what time she returned, what she bought at the store. But it doesn't bring him any peace. One evening, Dohyun looks at a photo of Johanna on his phone. It's an old photo of her laughing. Her eyes sparkle. Now those eyes are dull. And it's his fault. He wants to call her, just hear her voice. But he can't. He set these rules himself. He let her go himself. Meanwhile, Johanna is sitting at home. She puts her hand on her stomach. It's been almost 3 months. She hasn't told anyone yet, especially him. She knows she has to make a decision. But for now, she's afraid. Afraid of his reaction. Afraid he'll want to take the child away. Afraid of being hurt again. And outside, in a dark car, 2 men are keeping watch. They don't know about her secret. They're just doing their job. One evening, when Johanna had just returned from work, there was a knock on the door of her apartment. She wasn't expecting guests. Her heart sank. She walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Standing in the doorway was Sunghyuk, Do-hyun's younger brother. He looked like his brother, but younger, slimmer, and had a slightly mocking look in his eyes that Do-hyun never had. He held a small cardboard box in his hands. Johanna hesitated for a moment, but there was no point in hiding. She opened the door. "Johanna, good evening," Sunghyuk said politely. His smile was strained. "Sorry to bother you." "Sunghyuk, what are you doing here?" Johanna asked, not moving from her spot. "I was nearby on business. I decided to drop off a few things." He pointed to the box. "We found some of your things while cleaning out the mansion. Old books, some notes. My brother told me to throw them away, but I thought, maybe you value them." Johanna looked at him. She didn't trust Sunghyuk. He'd always lived in his brother's shadow, and envy often flickered in his eyes. But now he seemed almost sincere. "Thank you," she said cautiously. "You could have just sent them with the service." "And risk it falling into the wrong hands?" Sunghyuk said softly. "No. I decided to give it to you personally, to make sure you were okay." He looked at her searchingly. His gaze slid over her loose sweater, but revealed nothing. "I'm fine," Johanna said firmly. "You can hand over the box." Sunghyuk handed her the box. When she took it, he didn't let go right away. "He misses you, you know," Sunghyuk said quietly. "He doesn't eat. He doesn't sleep. He runs things on autopilot. And he's angry at the whole world." Johanna felt a familiar pain in her chest, but suppressed it. "It's his choice," she replied, taking the box. "And my life right now is none of his concern." Sunghyuk quickly agreed, smiling. "I'm simply relaying the facts. If you need anything, help, advice, you know where to find me. I'm not like my brother. I understand that some things are more important than duty." He nodded and turned to leave. Johanna closed the door and leaned her back against it. She was holding a box. She didn't remember leaving anything special there. She placed the box on the table and opened it. Inside were indeed a couple of her old art books and a sketchbook. Nothing important. But underneath them lay a small silk-wrapped package. She unwrapped it. There lay a small antique Korean amulet doll, fragile, made of porcelain. Her mother, Dohun, had given it to her many years ago, when she was still kind to her. Johanna thought she'd lost it. She held the doll in her hands. Why had Sunghyuk brought this particular thing? Was it an act of kindness? Or something else? She placed the doll on the shelf. She felt that this visit was only the beginning of something. Several days passed. Johanna was delayed at the museum. Master L asked her to finish an urgent order. By the time she emerged, it was already dark. To cut the distance to the metro station, she turned down a short, poorly lit alley. She usually avoided such places, but today she was tired and in a hurry. She was only halfway there when three young men emerged from around the corner of the trash cans. They were talking loudly and laughing. When they saw her, they fell silent. Johanna felt a chill down her spine. She quickened her pace, looking straight ahead. "Hey, beauty, where are you going so quickly?" shouted one of them, a tall guy in a hood. Johanna didn't answer. She was trying to reach the end of the alley, where there were streetlights and people. The guys blocked her path. "Show me what's in your bag," said another, shorter man. "Got money? A phone?" Johanna stopped, clutching her bag of restoration tools. Her heart was pounding somewhere in her throat. "Leave me alone," she said, trying to keep her voice from shaking. "Oh, she's talking!" laughed the third. The tall guy stepped forward, reaching for her bag. At that moment, two men emerged from the shadows by the wall. They moved silently and very quickly. Johanna didn't even have time to see them. The first man appeared right next to the tall guy. He whispered something in his ear. The guy's face instantly turned white. He recoiled as if from fire. The second man simply stood between Johanna and the other two. He didn't even look at them. He looked over their heads, but his posture spoke more of danger than any words could. The three hooligans froze. Their brazen demeanor vanished in a second. Silently, quickly, almost at a run, they turned and disappeared into the darkness of the alley. The two men didn't even turn to look after them. The one closest to Johanna bowed his head slightly. "You'd better walk along the lighted street," he said calmly. His voice was low and emotionless. And before she could say anything or look at their faces, they turned and walked away in the opposite direction, disappearing into the darkness as suddenly as they had appeared. Johanna stood there, breathing heavily. She was shaking. Who were they? The police? Random passers-by? But they were too fast, too professional, and they were gone too quickly. She understood. Surveillance. His people. They weren't just watching, they were guarding. A mixture of relief and rage washed over her. He still controlled her life, even from a distance. Even here, in a dark alley. She quickly walked out into the illuminated street, among the people. Her hands were still shaking. The next morning, Min-seok brought Dohun his report as usual, but today his face was more serious. "There was an incident last night," Min-seok said, placing the folder on the table. Dohun, who had been looking through the documents, suddenly looked up. "With her?" "Yes. She was attacked in an alley. 3 of them. Hooligans." Dohyun jumped up, his entire appearance expressing instant, wild rage. "What? Where is she? Is she okay?" His voice thundered. "She's fine," Min-seok said quickly. "Our people intervened before they even touched her. They just scared her. Our people convinced them to leave. She wasn't hurt." Dohyun didn't sit. He stood, gripping the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles turned white. An icy chill ran down his spine. Fear, real, primal fear, the likes of which he hadn't felt in years. "Those 3?" he muttered through clenched teeth. "We found them," Min-seok said coldly. "They've already left the city. Forever." And they realized their mistake. But Dohyun wasn't listening. He saw the picture before his eyes. She was alone, in the dark, scared. And his men, who were supposed to prevent this, simply watched until the situation became dangerous. "They let her get scared," Dohyun said quietly. "They let those scum get so close to her." "Observation protocols prohibit overt intervention without a direct threat," Min-seok recalled. "They acted correctly and quickly once the threat became real. Their job is to prevent any threat from even being possible," Dohyun shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "What if there weren't 3 of them, but 10? What if they had weapons?" He realized he was trembling. This fear was worse than any challenge from his enemies. He had abandoned her to protect her from the world of his marriage, but that world still caught up with her, and his own protection turned out to be a leaky umbrella. "Increase surveillance," he ordered, finally sitting up. His voice was dull with fatigue. "Double it. And change the protocol. The slightest potential danger within 100 meters. They remove it immediately, preemptively. I don't want any more reports like that. Got it, Min Se-ok nodded. It'll draw more attention to her. So be it, Dohun said gloomily. Better attention than fear. Better her irritation than her. He didn't finish. Min Se-ok left. Dohyun dropped his head into his hands. His care was stifling her freedom. But he realized he couldn't do otherwise. To abandon his protection would mean leaving her alone with the world he'd brought into her life. It was a vicious circle, and it was getting worse. At the museum, Johanna tried to forget about the previous evening. Work helped. Today, Master L brought her a new piece for restoration, an antique Korean lacquer jewelry box. It had been bequeathed to the museum and was in poor condition, cracks, scuffs, and peeling paint. Johanna donned magnifying glasses and set to work. She carefully brushed the surface with a soft brush, removing centuries of dust. The work required complete concentration, and this was a saving grace. The box was beautiful, delicately carved. She was cleaning the inside when her brush suddenly encountered a rough spot on the very bottom. It didn't look like it was damaged. She shone the lamp into it. There was a barely noticeable crack at the bottom of the box. Someone had once made a secret compartment there. Johanna's heart beat a little faster. She took a pair of fine tweezers and carefully lifted the edge. The small wooden plate came off. Inside lay a yellowed sheet of paper, rolled into a tube. Very old. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. The paper was thin, almost transparent. A single ink character was drawn on it. Protection, or security. Johanna froze. This wasn't part of a museum collection. It was someone's personal message, hidden away years ago. But why now? Why did this particular box end up in her possession? She looked at the note. The hieroglyph was written with a confident, strong hand. It wasn't Master Lee's handwriting, and certainly not hers. His thoughts immediately rushed to him. To Dohyun. Was this his handwriting? No, the paper was too old. But his people? His message? After yesterday's incident in the alley? But how? How could he have known that this particular box would end up in her hands? Did he control the museum too? The thought was paranoid, but after yesterday, it seemed possible. Or was it something else? Something from the distant past that found her now like a sign? She looked at the hieroglyph again. Protection. The protection that was suffocating her. The protection that might have saved her yesterday. She carefully folded the paper back. She didn't tell anyone. She put it in her own little pencil case with brushes. It was her secret. A riddle without an answer. But she felt that this sign was no coincidence. Someone wanted her to find it. And she wasn't sure that someone was Dohyun. A few days later, Sunghyuk reappeared in her life. This time, he accidentally met her at the museum exit, ostensibly visiting an exhibition nearby. Johanna! What luck! He smiled. Can I go for a minute? Somewhere for a cup of tea? Johanna wanted to refuse, but she was haunted by what she'd found in the box, and she remembered that Sunghyuk had brought her a protective doll. Maybe he knew something? They sat down in a small, quiet cafe across the street. I heard you were in trouble last week, Sunghyuk said without wasting any time, his expression expressing genuine concern. Johanna became wary. How do you know? I have eyes and ears too, he said softly, especially when it comes to the safety of my former sister-in-law. My brother, of course, has his own surveillance, but as you saw, it's not flawless. So he knew about his people. That means he was monitoring the surveillance. They helped, Johanna said dryly. This time, Sunghyuk corrected. And next time? His methods are crude. He surrounds you with an invisible wall, but walls attract attention. And they irritate. He was right. It was annoying. Why are you saying all this? Johanna asked bluntly. Sunghyuk sighed. He played with his spoon. Because I've always been on your side, Johanna. I thought your brother was wrong to abandon you. And now the situation has become even more complicated. He looked her straight in the eyes. His gaze was warm, sympathetic. I know about the child. Johanna felt her insides go cold. She held her breath. What are you talking about? Don't pretend. I see. And I have access to the same doctors as my brother. I know he doesn't know. And I understand why you're keeping quiet. You're afraid of him. Afraid he'll take the child as his property. Or that he'll hurt you again. Every word he said was spot on. Johanna remained silent, unable to deny it. I'm offering you help, Sunghyuk continued quietly. Real help. Not surveillance, but a safe place when the time comes. Legal protection. Doctors who will be loyal to you, not our family. You don't have to go through this alone. Why? Johanna whispered. Why do you want to help? What will you get? Sunghyuk leaned closer. Honestly, I have a score to settle with my brother. He pressured me for years, treating me like a nobody. He controls everything. I want to tip the scales. Helping you and your child is the right thing to do. And at the same time, showing Dohun that not everything in this world obeys his rules. But your well-being is more than just a move in a game. It's important to me. He spoke persuasively. His words contained a mixture of truth and self-interest, making them more honest than pure promises. And the note? Johanna suddenly asked, watching his reaction. The hieroglyph for protection in the box? A look of genuine surprise crossed his face. He didn't know. What note? He asked. No, it wasn't me. See? There are things I can't control. The world is full of mysteries. Johanna looked at him. He was offering a way out, support, protection from Dohun himself. It was dangerous. It could be a trap, but she felt so alone and trapped. I need to think, she said finally. Of course, Sunghyuk nodded. Take your time. But remember, time is running out. And when he finds out, and he will find out, things will become much more complicated. He left her alone at the table with her tea still half drunk. Johanna looked out the window. She had a choice. Remain in Dohyun's stifling protection or accept the hand of his brother, a man with unclear plans. And somewhere inside her, a new life was growing, making this choice the most important of her life. Dohun is driving to an important meeting. He looks out the car window, but doesn't see the city. He sees her face on the day they broke up. Empty eyes. The car passes a large city park. Dohyun's gaze automatically glides along the alleys, and suddenly, he freezes. Stop the car, he says sharply to the driver. The car slows smoothly to the side of the road. Dohun doesn't take his eyes off one of the benches by the pond. Johanna is sitting there. She's wrapped in a large gray blanket. A warm hat is on her head, revealing white curls. She sits motionless, looking at the water, at the frozen surface of the pond. She seems so alone and detached from the world. Dohyun's heart clenches with pain, sharp and physical. He hasn't seen her so close and so openly in over 6 months. He sees the profile of her face, familiar down to every line. He sees how she adjusts the blanket over her shoulders. He wants to open the door. Just come over. Say, what? He doesn't know. He just wants to be close, but his body won't obey. He freezes in the back seat, trapped. He's the head of the family. He's the one who made the decision. He has no right to disturb the peace he gave her. Boss? The driver asks quietly. We're late. Dohyun watches Johanna slowly rise from the bench. She carefully folds her blanket. She turns and walks down the alley, away from the pond. She doesn't look around. She's lost in her thoughts. He watches as her figure grows smaller and smaller until she disappears behind the trees. Dohyun says quietly, leaning back in his seat. The car starts moving. The meeting proceeds automatically. He says the necessary words, nods, but his thoughts are still there, in the park, on the cold bench. He saw more than just loneliness in her pose. He saw a new, calm strength. Or was it just his imagination? In the evening, he asks Min-seok for all the reports for the past week. He reads every line, went to the store, worked at the museum, returned home, dry facts. But now, after seeing her for himself, these facts come to life. And he understands. There's no room for him in her life. She simply lives. Without him, Sunghyuk is sitting in his office. He's pleased. His conversation with Johanna went well. She's hesitant, and that's already a lot. Now he needs his trump cards. Facts. Not just guesses about pregnancy, but confirmation. To offer help, he needs to know everything. He calls his most trusted man, Chan, the one who can find information without leaving a trace. I need to know one thing about Johan, Sunghyuk says. Her medical history, the last 6 months, especially her gynecologist visits. Everything you can find. Chan nods silently. He doesn't ask any unnecessary questions. 2 days later, he returns with a thin folder. It's all here, says Chan, placing the folder on the table. She's being seen at a regular local clinic. Everything is official. She's 26 weeks along. Everything is normal. The doctor noted that the patient is refusing any additional treatments, screenings, and keeps the situation secret. Sunghyuk opens the folder. He sees official forms, dates. His guess is confirmed. He smiles. This is perfect. His brother's heir, the one he doesn't know about. This is a powerful weapon. Good job, he says to Jung. Don't tell anyone! But Sunghyuk doesn't know one thing. Jian is a double agent. He's been working for Sunghyuk for years, but his true loyalty is to money. And Dohyun pays the biggest bucks. John has been reporting his younger brother's every move to Min-seok for a long time. So when John leaves Sunghyuk's, he doesn't go home. He goes to the remote office and sends an encrypted message. It contains a copy of the entire report. 40 minutes later, the decrypted copy lies on Min-seok's desk. Min-seok turns pale. He understands the weight of this information. He doesn't go to Dohyun right away. First, he checks everything himself, checks the seals, the numbers. Everything is real. Only an hour after the report landed on Sunghyuk's desk, Min-seok, stone-faced, enters Dohyun's office. He holds the same folder in his hand. Dohyun signs the documents. He's tired. The thought of Johan in the park won't leave him. "Boss," Min-seok says. His voice is unusually quiet. "It's urgent and very important." Dohyun puts down his pen. He sees the expression on Min-seok's face. This isn't a typical surveillance report. What happened? To her? He instantly became alert. "She's fine. Bye." Min-seok places the folder in front of him. "This is a report, not ours. Sunghyuk's people got it." Dohyun frowns. "Brother? What does he want?" "What is it?" "Johanna's medical history for the last 6 months." Dohyun opens the folder. He skims the first lines. The name of the clinic, the general tests. Then his gaze falls on the obstetrics and gynecology section, and time stands still. He sees the registration date. He sees the doctor's note. Pregnancy, 26 weeks. First fetal movements noted. Patient is healthy, 26 weeks. He leans back in his chair as if he's been struck. A frantic calculation begins in his head. Months, weeks. He starts from today's date, 26 weeks ago. They were still together. They lived in the same house. They slept in the same bed. He looks at the date on the report again, then at the calendar on the wall. His mind, keen on business calculations, now mercilessly puts 2 and 2 together. The child was conceived then, when they were together, a few weeks before that fateful visit to the doctor, before the infertility diagnosis. So, the child is his heir, his blood, his son or daughter. Everything he so desperately wanted, and for which he had given up the woman he loved, was already there. It was already growing inside her on the very day he pronounced his sentence. The world before his eyes swims and turns upside down. The entire foundation on which he has stood for the last 6 months crumbles in an instant. First comes emptiness, a dull, deafening silence in his head. Then the emptiness fills. First, with an incredible, blinding light of hope. He will have a child, his and Johanna's. And after the hope comes a wave, a black, ugly, all-crushing wave of realization. He rejected her. He forced her to leave. He told her their marriage was pointless because they would have no children, and she was already carrying his child. She remained silent. She left, taking his heir with her. Why? Why didn't she say? And then the answer comes, clear and merciless. Because he didn't give her a chance. He announced his decision. He was firm, cold, unwavering in his duty. He looked at her and didn't see her. He thought only of his pain, of his failure. He had cornered her himself. He had made it so she couldn't trust him. She was afraid of him, his reaction, his cold rationality. Perhaps she thought he would take the child and throw her out completely, or simply wouldn't believe it was his. The pain becomes physical. It presses on my chest, takes my breath away, and then the pain turns to rage, a dull, furious rage. At whom? At myself. At the doctors who made a mistake. At my brother who knew and kept quiet. At the whole world. He sweeps everything off the table with one sweep of his hand. Folders, documents, an expensive pen. Everything flies to the floor with a deafening crash. He breathes heavily, like a wounded animal. Min-seok doesn't move. He just waits. All this time, Dohyun croaks, clenching his fists. All this time, she's been alone. And this Sunghyuk, he knew. He was following her, digging into her life. Rage finds a target, his brother. Sunghyuk knew the truth and kept it to himself. Why? To use it against him later? To play his own games? He wants to manipulate her, Dohyun says, his voice turning icy. He wants to use my child in his fight against me. Now his rage is mixed with a new, chilling fear. Johanna and the child are at the center of a silent war between brothers, and she doesn't suspect, or does she already suspect? She talked to Sunghyuk. What did he tell her? He must act. Now. Reason tells him, think it through, make a plan, act calmly. But reason loses out to the storm of emotions. Without giving a single order or considering the consequences, Dohun grabs the car keys and runs out of the office. Min Seok tries to say something, but he can't hear him. He gets behind the wheel and races through the city at night. All rules, all precautions forgotten. He has to see her, now. He drives up to her house. He knows the address by heart, even though he's never been there. He parks in the shade across the street and turns off the lights. He looks at the windows of her third-floor apartment. A light is on in one of them, a warm, yellow light. She's there, very close. His heart is pounding so hard it's thumping in his temples. His whole body is tense. He puts his hand on the door handle. Now. Now he'll come out, get up, and knock. And what will he say? Hi. I found out you're pregnant with my child. I'm sorry I kicked you out. Let's make things right. He hears how stupid it sounds in his head. He sees her eyes on the day they parted. Empty. He hears her quiet voice. I needed you, but you only need an heir. And now he has an heir. Does that change everything? For her, no. For her, it will look like this. He came back not because of her, but because of the child. That's exactly what she was afraid of. He let go of the door handle. He sat there, gripping the steering wheel, looking at the light in the window. He imagined what she was doing. Maybe reading, maybe drinking tea, maybe putting her hand on her stomach and talking to the baby. His baby. Stranger. She's a stranger now. He made her a stranger himself. Strength, confidence, power, all evaporate, leaving only the bitter realization of one's own stupidity and fear. Fear of making another mistake. Fear of seeing in her eyes not love, but hatred, or worse, indifference. He sits like this for over an hour. The light in the window goes out. She goes to bed. Only then does he start the car and slowly drive away. He hasn't fixed anything. He's only made things worse by coming here like a man possessed. The next morning, Do-hyun is a shadow of his former self. He hasn't slept. He realizes that yesterday's outburst was a sign of weakness. He won't achieve anything this way. He needs a different approach, one of distance, one of respect. He summons old Park. Park has worked for the Kim family for over 40 years. He was an advisor to Do-hyun's father. He is wise, calm, and respected by everyone. Even Johanna has always treated him warmly. Park enters the office. He sees Do-hyun's condition and doesn't comment. You called me, Do-hyun Sasi, he says respectfully. Yes, Pak-sasin. I need your help in a very personal matter. Concerning Johanna, he explains the situation briefly. Without getting emotional, he states the facts. She's pregnant, the baby is his, and he wants to ensure her safety. Old Pak's face remains impassive, but his eyes flash with an understanding of the tragic nature of the situation. I want you to take something to her, Do-hyun says. He hands Park a small lacquered box. There's a letter from me inside. And keys. Keys to a country house by the lake. It's quiet, safe, with the best security. All the staff are there. She can live there until everything is sorted out. It's the safest place I can offer her. Pak takes the box. It's heavy. What should I tell her? He asks. Tell her that this isn't an attempt to bring everything back. This is an attempt to fix what can be fixed, to keep her and the baby safe, to have everything they need, to keep her in need of nothing. What if she refuses? Pak asks softly. Do-hyun lowers his gaze. Then it's her choice. I won't insist, but you must try to convince her. For the sake of the child. Pak nods silently. He leaves with the box. Do-hyun waits. Every minute drags on painfully. He hopes. For the first time in 6 months, he allows himself to hope. Johanna opens the door and sees old man Park. She's surprised, but a warm, sincere smile appears on her face. Park was one of the few in Kim's house who always treated her like a human being. Pak Sasson, please come in. What brings you here? Pak bows politely and enters. He holds an elegant box in his hands. Do-hyun Sasi asked me to give you something. Johan Sasi. The smile on her face fades. All the warmth is gone. Her face becomes cautious, closed. I'm listening, she says, without inviting him to sit. Park places the box on the table. There's a letter inside. And keys. Keys to a country residence on the lake. Do-hyun Sasi asks you to consider moving there. It's a peaceful and very safe place. It has everything for your comfort and for the child's comfort. Johanna doesn't move. So he found out. Of course he found out. Through his brother or through his spies. It doesn't matter. Now he's acting. He knows, she says quietly. It's not a question. Yes, Puck confirms. He knows. And he deeply regrets what happened. He wants to ensure your safety. That's his primary concern. His main concern is the heir, Johanna corrects. Her voice is even, emotionless. 6 months ago, his concern was finding someone who could create the heir. Now the heir has been found. His concern has returned. He made a mistake, Puck says softly. He was blinded by duty and didn't see what was right in front of him. Now he's trying. Correct the mistake? Johanna interrupts. With what? With a new wall? A more beautiful, safer prison? She walks up to the desk and opens the drawer. She sees a thick envelope and a set of keys on a leather keychain. She doesn't even look at the letter. She takes the keys. They're cold and heavy in her hand. She puts them back in the box and closes the lid. Then she turns to Puck. Paxson, you have always been kind to me, so I will tell you this. And you tell him. Tell him that I don't need his walls. Not the highest, not the safest, not the most beautiful. I don't need his provision. I have a job. I will have everything my child needs. She pauses. Her eyes are bright and firm. Tell him I needed him. Just him. And he made his choice. He chose dynasty. He chose duty. Now he will have an heir. But he no longer has me, and I have no need of his walls. She picks up the box and hands it back to Puck, her movement leaving no room for argument. The old man looks at her with sadness and, with respect, he takes the box. I'll pass it on as is. Take care, Johannasi, and congratulations. He bows and leaves. Johanna closes the door. She stands, leaning her forehead against the cool wood. She has just given up the most reliable protection in the city, but she feels stronger than ever. She will protect her child herself, not with his walls, with her own strength. 2 days after Park's visit, Sunghyuk knocks on the door again. Johanna opens it with a heavy heart. She's tired of uninvited guests from her past life. Sunghyuk stands at the door with a box of expensive fruit and a slight smile. I was passing by. I thought I'd pop in and check on you. After everything, he pauses, letting her know he knows about Park's visit. Of course he does. He has his own sources. Johanna sighs and lets him pass. She's too tired to argue. Sunghyuk places the box on the kitchen table and looks around. His gaze expertly sweeps the apartment, assessing its security, its weak points. I heard you turned down your brother's offer, he begins cautiously. The right decision. His approach was too harsh. He was simply offering safety, Johanna remarks dryly, pouring water into the teapot. She doesn't offer tea. Safety? Sunghyuk chuckles softly. Did you see him yesterday? After your refusal? My brother isn't just upset. He's not himself. He's broken. Sunghyuk's notice. He doesn't sleep, he continues, pretending not to notice her gesture. He cancels meetings. He doesn't give orders. He just sits in his office. People whisper. This has never happened to him before. Even when my father died, he held on. He says this with a slight note, not of malice, but rather of amazement, as if he saw that an impregnable fortress had cracked. Johanna is silent. She doesn't want to hear it. She doesn't want to imagine him suffering. It makes her feel guilty, and she doesn't want to feel guilty. She wants to be angry. Anger is safer. Why are you telling me this? She finally asks, turning to him. So you understand the situation, Sunghyuk shrugs. You're in the eye of the storm without meaning to be. Dohun is unpredictable right now, and unpredictable power is dangerous, even with the best intentions. He takes a step closer, his voice quieter, more trusting. My offer still stands, Johanna. A safe place. Not his. Mine. Independent. Doctors who will work for you, not the Kim family. No one will find you there unless you want to. Johanna looks at him. She sees sincerity, or a beautiful imitation of it. She also sees his advantage. He needs this child as a trump card against his brother, but perhaps there's honesty in this obvious advantage. He doesn't hide the fact that this is both an aid and a game. I need time. She repeats her previous answer, but now it sounds less confident. Sunghyuk nods understandingly. Of course, but don't wait too long. Pregnancy is not the time for stress. Think about what's most comfortable for the baby. He leaves, leaving her with a box of fruit and heavy thoughts. She puts her hand on her stomach again. The baby is kicking, strongly, as if it senses something, as if it's saying, Mom, make up your mind. Dohyun receives a report from Park. The old man relayed every word Johanna had said. I needed him, and he made his choice. These words burn inside him, but he also hears something important in Park's report. Her determination, her strength. She doesn't want his charity. She wants independence. He understands that his old methods aren't working. Direct suggestions, control, surveillance, all of it is repulsive to her. He needs to change his tactics. If he can't be there, he can create a safe environment around her. Discreetly, he calls his financial manager, a man named Kim. We need to set up a system, Dohun says. All her current expenses, rent, utilities, phone, everything that can be paid. It should be paid automatically, through a chain of funds, so that the source cannot be traced, so that the money just comes in and the accounts are closed. The manager nods, taking notes. The museum where she works, Dohyun continues. We need to make a donation. Anonymous. A large one. For development, for restoration. So they don't have financial problems. So her salary is stable and so she's appreciated. Boss, it's hard to hide once you start digging, the manager notes cautiously. No one will dig, Dohyun says with a confidence he doesn't even feel. She won't. She won't look for patrons. And the museum, they'll just be happy to get the money. The system is set up within a week. Now the electricity bill for Johanna's apartment arrives, and the bill to a certain charitable foundation for the support of young professionals is automatically paid. The apartment's owner receives rent from a trust account registered abroad. The museum receives a large donation from an anonymous connoisseur of traditional art. The director is delighted. Renovations begin, and new equipment is purchased for the restoration workshop. Johanna even receives a small bonus for her diligence. Dohyun doesn't enjoy it, but he does feel a small sense of relief. He can't be there, but he can take the daily grind out of her life. He can let her focus on herself and the baby. It's a tiny, pathetic semblance of caring, but it's all he can do right now. Johanna notices something odd a month later. She goes to the museum's accounting office to sign the paperwork for that very award. The accountant, an elderly woman, smiles at her with a particularly warm smile. Johanna, my dear, she says, handing over the papers. Tell your secret admirer a huge thank you from our entire team. Johanna blinks. Excuse me? What admirer? Well, the patron, the anonymous benefactor who sent us so much money. The accountant beams. We all think it's because of you. You're so talented and humble. Some wealthy art lover must have seen your work and decided to support our entire humble organization. A shiver runs down Johanna's spine. She remembers the rent bills she'd paid, but then they stopped coming. She thought she'd simply gotten into some kind of discount program or the landlord had changed the terms. Now everything is coming together to form a terrible picture. She signs the papers silently and leaves. Her hands are cold. Him. It's him. He hasn't left her alone. He's just become more sophisticated. He's entangled her life in an invisible financial web. He pays for her shelter, her light, her work. He keeps her as his mistress from a distance, without even asking. A wave of humiliation and anger washes over her. She feels like a puppet, paid for by someone else, pulled by the strings rather than an independent woman. That same evening, she goes to the bank. She closes all her old cards, which could have used his money. She opens a new account at a different bank, transferring her own, honestly earned money into it. Not much, but it's hers. The next day, she goes to the landlord. I want to receive the rent bills in person and pay them myself, she says firmly. Cash or from my new account. Please turn off any automatic payments. The owner, an elderly man, is surprised but agrees. He's even happy. Cash is more convenient for him. Johanna is conducting a complete financial audit of her life. She's cutting off everything she can. She's willing to live more modestly but still be independent. She won't let him buy her peace of mind. And certainly not the right to father her child. Dohyun receives a new report from Sunghyuk. It contains information about Johanna changing all her bank accounts, that she's canceled automatic bill payments. He realizes she's figured him out and rejected his help. Again, it's painful, but not unexpected. He almost respects her for it. But in that same report, there's another line, a small, dry phrase that cuts deeper than any open confrontation. The subject has signed up for a specialized course called Childbirth Preparation for Single Parents. Classes begin next week. Single parents. These words hang in the air of the office. They physically wound him. He sits, hunched over, and reads this phrase over and over again. She doesn't just live separately. She's internalized her status. Single mother. There's no room for the child's father in her worldview. He's not a parent. He's a donor of genetic material. Or worse, a threat. He imagines her in a class with other single women. She listens to advice on how to cope alone. How to explain her father's absence to a child. She prepares for a life without him. intentionally and consciously erasing him from her future. Until this moment, there had been at least some hope. Maybe it was anger, maybe it was hatred, but these were feelings. They connected. And this cold, practical acceptance of a reality without him, this was an acknowledgement of his non-existence in her new life. He doesn't growl, he doesn't break anything. He simply feels a huge, empty black hole forming inside him. More than rage, more than despair. This is a sentence, her sentence for him. Min-seok waits for instructions, but Do-hyun doesn't give them. What could he possibly order? Forbid her from attending classes? That would only prove her point. He simply waves his hand, signaling the end of the conversation. He's left alone in silence, and for the first time in years, he feels completely helpless. Birinoy Do-hyun absorbed in his personal drama, Sunghyuk wastes no time. His plan is maturing. He knows his brother is more vulnerable than ever. His attention is scattered, and his decisions can be emotional. It's the perfect time for quiet reinforcement. Sunghyuk is starting small. The Kim family has always had small competitors, independent operators on the fringes of their business. Many of them have debts, small but problematic. Through proxies and complex schemes, Sun Hae-hyuk begins buying up these debts. He doesn't demand immediate repayment. He offers easy restructuring terms. For these people, he becomes not a greedy debt collector, but a savior, a benefactor. His people negotiate quietly. No noise, no violence, just money and mutually beneficial agreements. But every agreement contains subtle clauses about loyalty, the right of first refusal, and the provision of information. He builds a network of obligations, a network of people who will owe him, not with money, but with loyalty, or with fear. He's not touching his brother's major assets. Not yet. He's amassing influence on the outskirts, preparing a foothold. His goal isn't open war. He wants to create a situation where Do-hyun is isolated, where his own business begins to falter due to 1,000 minor sabotages and unforeseen circumstances. And then, when his brother is sufficiently weak and demoralized, Sunghyuk will come to him with a decision, a single decision, to cede some control. And perhaps, with another trump card, information about the whereabouts of Johanna and his heir, and on what terms. Sun Hyuk is playing the long game, and he's confident he has the patience. After all, his brother currently has an Achilles' heel. Its name is Johanna. Johanna begins noticing strange things in her house. Her upstairs neighbor, a noisy young man who liked to play loud music at night, suddenly moves out, within 2 days, without explanation. She doesn't see the new neighbor. The apartment stands empty. Then, on Saturday morning, the owner of the house himself, elderly Mr. Kan, comes to her door. He looks agitated. "Johan Asi," he says, lowering his voice. "Someone came to see you yesterday, when you were away." She becomes wary. "Who?" "A man. Not young. In an expensive suit. He asked about you. Not directly, but about who lives in this apartment. Then he started asking about me. He said he had clients who would like to buy the whole house. He offered a lot of money. He said that it would be better for me to sell and leave, that the area was becoming unsettled." Mr. Khan is worried. He was very convincing. "He didn't threaten me, no, but I felt pressured. I said I'd think about it. And this morning I find out the man has disappeared. The company he came with isn't answering calls. It's as if he's disappeared into thin air." Johanna feels a cold dread. This isn't Do-hyun. His style is different. He would have simply bought the entire house without asking, or beefed up security. He wouldn't have intimidated the old owner. "Did you call the police?" she asks. "What am I supposed to say?" Mr. Khan shrugs. "They offered me a good deal and then changed their minds?" "No, but I thought, you should be careful. Maybe you've picked up the wrong fans." He leaves, leaving her with anxiety. Johanna immediately calls Sunghyuk. Isn't that his signature? Or is it his signature, and he's trying to create a situation where she'll ask to go to his safe place? Sunghyuk answers almost immediately. He listens to her, and his voice becomes serious. "It wasn't me, Johanna. I swear. And I don't think it was Do-hyun either. He wouldn't be so petty. This seems like someone's own initiative. One of his men, who decided to help the boss by removing a potential problem. Your master, or," he pauses, "or someone else. Someone who's keeping an eye on you besides us." His words don't reassure her. They frighten her even more. So, could third parties be watching her? Rivals of the Kim family? Enemies of Do-hyun? who have learned of her pregnancy and want to use her or the child against him? What should I do? She asks. And for the first time in a long time, genuine, childish fear breaks through in her voice. Nothing yet, Sunghyuk says calmly, but be on your guard and think about my offer quickly. I'm not trying to scare you, Johanna. I'm just showing you the reality. You're pregnant with Kim Do-hyun's heir. You're not just a woman. You're a target for many. He hangs up. Johanna stands in the middle of the room, hugging herself. She feels like she's in a glass box. She's being watched from all sides. Dohun, Sunghyuk, and now perhaps a third party. And beneath her heart beats the life that has made her the center of this dangerous game. She looks at her phone. She signed up for a course for single parents under a false name. Maybe it's time to quit her job? Maybe she should disappear? But where? And how? And with what money? For the first time, her resolve begins to crack. Fear for her child overpowers her pride. Do-hyun sleeps restlessly, lightly. He's barely slept lately. His phone sits on the nightstand. It's always on vibrate, but this time it rings loudly, breaking the silence of the night. Do-hyun winces and grabs the phone. The number on the screen is unknown. He's about to hang up, but something makes him answer. "Hello?" he says hoarsely. Silence. Then, ragged breathing. And a voice. Her voice. Trembling, frightened, like nothing he'd ever heard. "Do-hyun," she says, and there's so much panic in that one word that his heart sank. "I'm flooding." He's already on his feet. "What? Where are you? What happened?" "The neighbors upstairs." A pipe burst. "My whole place is flooded. Water. Everywhere. I don't know what to do." There are tears in her voice. She is alone, in the middle of the night, in a flooded apartment, pregnant. All thoughts, all caution, all pride disappear in an instant. "I'm coming. Now. Right now. Don't move. Be careful. Don't slip. Do you hear me?" "Yes," she answers barely audibly. He doesn't hang up. He talks to her as he runs to the elevator, goes down to the garage, and starts the car. "Is the water very cold?" "Yes." "Turn off the power at the panel. Now." "Approach the hallway carefully. Find the panel. I'll be in touch." He hears her footsteps, her heavy breathing. Then a click. "Turned it off. Good job. Now sit somewhere dry, on the bed. I'm already on my way." He races through the city at night, breaking all the rules. Red lights don't exist for him. He talks to her the whole way. About anything. The weather, how starry the night is. As long as she doesn't panic. As long as she hears his voice. He forgets about his bodyguards. About security protocols. He is alone in the car, flying through the night towards her voice. He arrives 18 minutes early. He leaves the car right at the entrance, without even closing the door. He runs into the building and climbs the stairs to the third floor. The door to her apartment is ajar. From inside, the sound of running water and quiet sobbing can be heard. Do-hyun goes inside. A scene of chaos. There's water in the hallway and living room. It's standing on the floor, ankle-deep in places. Dripping water drips from the ceiling, and streams of water run down the walls. Furniture is shifted, and small objects are floating on the floor. And in the midst of all this, there she is. Johanna stands in the doorway of the bedroom, which, judging by the damage, suffered less. She's wearing a light robe, hastily thrown over her pajamas. Her curly blonde hair is disheveled, her face pale, her eyes wide and tearful. She's clutching the doorframe with her hands, as if afraid she might fall. They look at each other across a puddle of water, and after 6 months of silence, pain, and unspoken words, and then his gaze falls on her stomach. On the rounded, obvious curve beneath the thin fabric of her robe, he's so close, just a few steps away. Here it is, reality. Not in reports, not in guesses, right here. His child, and the woman he loves, scared and alone in her misery. He doesn't know what to say. All words seem empty and unnecessary. Do-hyun takes off his jacket. He approaches her, carefully stepping through the water. He doesn't try to hug her. He simply drapes the jacket over her shoulders. The heavy fabric falls onto her, further emphasizing her fragility. She looks at him without looking away. She doesn't flinch. Then he turns away. He takes off his expensive watch and places it on the dry chest of drawers. He rolls up his shirt sleeves. He sees a bucket and a mop in the corner. He begins to work, silently. He scoops up water with a bucket and carries it into the bathroom, pouring it out. Then he takes a mop and begins to squirt the water out into the hallway, onto the stairwell. At first, Johanna simply watches. Then, as if waking up, she picks up a second mop, an old battered one, and begins working next to him. They don't speak, only the sound of the water, their heavy breathing, and the scraping of the mops on the floor. He works with the fury of despair. Every liter of water spilled is his fault. Every abrasion on her face is his mistake. He silently atones for his guilt with physical labor. She works nearby, carefully, trying not to overexert herself. Occasionally, she stops to catch her breath, placing her hand on the small of her back. He sees it out of the corner of his eye, but doesn't comment. She simply works faster. An hour passes, maybe two. The water gradually recedes. Only puddles and wet streaks remain on the floor. The ceiling has stopped leaking. Voices can be heard from above. Emergency services and neighbors have arrived. Dohun puts down the bucket. He's breathing heavily. His shirt is stuck to his back. His hair is disheveled. He wipes his forehead with his sleeve. Johanna stands, leaning on a mop. She looks at him. There's no longer panic in her eyes, only fatigue and a complex mixture of emotions he can't read. "Thank you," she says quietly. This is the first word they have spoken to each other in 6 months. It sounds fragile, like glass. Dawn breaks. Gray light filters into the wrecked apartment. The water has been cleaned up, but chaos remains everywhere. Furniture has been moved, wet carpets, and things are piled in dry corners. Johanna stands in the kitchen. She boils water in the kettle. Her movements are slow, careful. "Sit down," she says, without looking at him. "Would you like some tea?" He nods and sits down at the small kitchen table. He feels awkward, huge, and out of place in this small, ruined apartment. She places a cup of tea in front of him. She sits down opposite him, cupping her cup in her hands to warm her fingers. The silence stretches on, but it's not as tense as before. There's weariness and a need to speak. Johanna is the first to break the silence. She looks not at him, but into her cup. "I saw your man, Paksasan. I told him everything." "I know," Do-hyun answers quietly. "Then you know my answer." He nods, looking at her lowered eyelashes, at the slender fingers clutching the porcelain. "But tonight," she pauses, "it changes some things. Not everything, but some." He freezes, afraid to frighten this fragile moment. "I'm ready," she exhales. "I'm ready to accept that the child has a father. And that father is you." He feels his chest tighten with pain and hope. "I'm not asking or wanting anything for myself," she continues, her voice growing stronger. "But the child, he has the right to know you, to have your support, financial and any other." She finally looks up at him. They're clear and firm. "So I'll let you help, but only on my terms." He nods silently, letting her speak. "Everything will be arranged through a lawyer. My lawyer. We'll draw up an agreement. About support, about your participation in the child's life after birth. You'll be able to see him, spend time with him, according to a schedule we'll approve. Everything is official, everything is on paper." She takes a deep breath. "But there will be no personal meetings between us. No calls, no visits like today. No attempts to fix anything between us. We are no longer there. There is the child's mother and the child's father, and that's all." Her words cut him, but he understands their truth. This is more than he could have hoped for after everything. This is a chance. A tiny one, but a chance nonetheless. "Do you agree to these terms?" she asks bluntly. Do-hyun looks at her for a long moment. He sees not anger in her eyes, but a tired determination. She's protecting herself and the child. She's setting boundaries. He taught her not to trust him. "Yes," he says finally. His voice is hoarse. "I agree. On your terms. Everything will be as you said." He sees her shoulders slump slightly in relief. "But," he adds, and she becomes wary again, "I will set my condition. 1. She's waiting. Safety. Yours and the baby's. It will be under my control. Complete and unconditional. Not surveillance, but real professional security. Discreet, but omnipresent. Doctors who will be personally vetted by me. The place where you will live before and after the birth. It must be safe, and I will decide what is safe." He sees her about to object, but he continues, cutting her off. "Johanna, you just called me at 3 in the morning because you were flooded. What if something worse had happened? What if not a flood, but a fire? Or someone else? You're pregnant with my heir. My family has enemies. You're a target now. I can't allow that. I won't interfere with your life, but I will ensure that your life is safe. No question about it." He speaks firmly, like the head of the family, but in his eyes, there's not a command, but a plea. "Let me do at least this. Let me protect you, since I can't be with you." Johanna looks at him silently. She thinks about the strange visitor to the owner of the house, about her fear. She understands that he is right. She hates this truth, but she understands it. She nods slowly, reluctantly. Okay, but security is only outside. No one enters my house without my permission. And the location, I'll choose it myself from the options you've suggested. And I'll have veto power. Agreed, he says immediately. It's a compromise he's willing to make. They sit at the table, sipping cold tea. A truce has just been concluded between them. A cold, businesslike truce, but a truce nonetheless. A thin thread has appeared that connects them again. Through the child, through responsibility, through fear. This isn't love. This isn't family. But this is the beginning of something new, fragile and dangerous. Sunghyuk learns of the night's incident by morning. His contact reports. Dohun personally visited Yana, spent several hours there, and left at dawn. Sunghyuk sits in his office, feeling the rage rising inside him, cold and sharp. He clenches his fists so tightly that his nails dig into his palms. Everything is falling apart. His subtle plan, to offer Yana refuge, become her and the child's only support, and then use this connection against his brother, is crumbling like a house of cards. Dohun is back in the game. Moreover, he now has an official, albeit limited, right to be present in their lives. Through a lawyer, through an agreement. He has legalized his paternity. And Sunghyuk, he remains in the shadows. Just a brother. Just a good uncle, whose offer now seems unnecessary now that the real father is taking charge. He's not just angry. He feels betrayed. Yana was scared by one flood and ran to him. To Dohun, the one who kicked her out. And he, Sunghyuk, who offered to help earlier, she pushed away. His resentment is old, childish. He's always been second best. Always in the shadow of his great brother. And now, when he finally has a chance to step into the light, his brother has taken everything again. Without even a fight, just by showing up. No, he won't give up like that. If he can't be Johanna's savior, he can be her enlightener. He can show her who her great Dohun really is. He has a plan B. It's dirtier, riskier, but now he has nothing to lose. 3 days after the flood, Johanna returns from work. Her apartment is almost in order. The cleaners, paid for by Dohun, arrived. She didn't resist. A man is waiting for her at the entrance. He looks familiar, but she can't immediately place his name. Johanna? He says uncertainly. Johanna, is that you? She looks closer and remembers. Jang Minho, an old acquaintance. He worked as a legal consultant at one of the Kim family's companies several years ago. They sometimes crossed paths at corporate events. Minho, see? She says, surprised. Yes, it's me. I'm so glad to see you. He smiles, but it seems forced. I just returned yesterday from a long business trip abroad, and the first thing I heard was about you and Dohun. And about the baby. Congratulations. She nods politely, but inside she's wary. How does he know? The news wasn't public. Thank you. What brings you here? Oh, I'm just now filling out paperwork for one of our mutual, former colleagues, and I came across something in the archives. His voice becomes quieter, more significant. Johanna, I found that very strange. And I thought, you should know. As a woman, as a mother. He hands her a thin folder. These are copies. The originals were destroyed, of course, but I managed to make copies before leaving. Johanna takes the folder with a bad feeling. She opens it. Inside were several documents. Memos, pay reports, and one medical document. Her name. Dated 2 weeks before the day Dohun announced their breakup. The document contains the test results, a positive pregnancy test, and a resolution, written in Dohyun's familiar, firm handwriting. Destroy. No traces left. The silence initiative is in effect. Her world is turning upside down. Blood is pounding in her temples. What? What is this? She whispers. It means, Minho says quietly, making a mournful face, that he knew, Johanna. He knew about your pregnancy even before he kicked you out. He ordered it to be hidden because, you see, the infertility diagnosis was convenient for him. He wanted to end the marriage for a valid reason, without losing face. And the child was an unwanted complication, until he realized it was a boy. The heir. He says it so sincerely, with such pain in his voice. I thought for a long time about whether to tell you or not, but I couldn't remain silent. You deserve the truth. He puts his hand on her shoulder, but she flinches as if struck. I'm sorry I upset you. Take care, and be careful with him. Minho quickly leaves, leaving her standing with the folder in her trembling hands. Johanna goes up to the apartment. She sits on the floor in the hallway and reads the documents again. Every line, every signature, everything looks real. The stamps, the forms, the handwriting, everything she'd begun to struggle to believe, his remorse, his fear, his nighttime help, all crumbled in an instant. He knew. He knew everything, and he still threw her away. And now that he's learned about the heir, he's playing the repentant sinner. To gain access to the child, she feels sick with disgust and betrayal. She doesn't sleep all night. In the morning, she goes to see the lawyer she's already hired to negotiate with Dohun, a young, principled woman named El and Soyeon. Johanna places the folder on the table. Everything is off. All agreements. I will not sign a single agreement with this man. Soyeon looks at the documents, her face becoming serious. This is a serious accusation. Have you verified the authenticity? I saw his handwriting. I saw his company seals. Johanna's voice breaks. He knew. He knew all along. And he threw me out like I was useless. And now he wants the child back. I won't allow it. Never. Soyeon nods, looking at her sympathetically. Okay, I'll send a formal notice terminating all negotiations, based on loss of trust. We'll come up with a formal reason. Send it, says Johanna. She feels devastated. Any small hope she had that night after the flood is gone. Returning home, she picks up her phone. She dials his number, the same one she'd been saving all these months but never dialed. She writes one message, short, like a knife stab. Did you know? She sends it, and blocks his number, to avoid seeing a reply, to avoid falling for more lies. Dohyun receives a text message while he's in a meeting. He reads those two words and freezes. People around him continue talking, but he can't hear anything. Did you know? About what? What does she mean? Know what? He leaves the conference room and immediately calls her. It goes to voicemail. He tries again. Same result. She's blocked him. Panic, cold and clear, grips him. Something has happened. Something has upended the fragile truce they'd just forged. He calls Min Seok. What's going on with Johanna? Report immediately. Everything's calm, boss. She went to see her lawyer this morning, then came home. No incidents. A lawyer? Why? I don't know. But an hour after her visit, the lawyer sent an official refusal to continue negotiations, without explanation. Dohyun feels the ground shift beneath her. She didn't just change her mind. She learned something that made her call it quits. Did you know? She asks. He understands. Someone told her a lie. Or not a lie? Perhaps a truth he himself doesn't know? He returns to his office and begins to think. Who could have gained access to her? Who has a vested interest in ruining their shaky agreement? The answer comes almost immediately. Sunghyuk, his brother, who had already tried to gain her trust, who had been following her, who was clearly plotting something. Dohyun calls Min Seok again. All attention on my brother, all his people, all his contacts for the last 72 hours. I want to know who he spoke to, who he saw, what orders he gave, everything, and find the person who might have approached Johanna yesterday or today. Immediately. The investigation takes less than a day. Sunghyuk wasn't particularly careful. He used an old, disgruntled employee, Jang Min-ho, who had recently returned to the country. Min-ho approached Johanna's house. They had a brief conversation. Next comes the technical analysis. A wiretap of Min-ho's phone, illegally, but who's counting now, shows his conversation with Sunghyuk. Mentions of documents, archives. She must believe. Dohyun listens to the recording, his rage knowing no bounds. Brother? His own brother planted some kind of trap to push her away from him, to ruin her only chance. He has a name. He has proof of collusion. But he needs real documents. He needs to know exactly what lie Sunghyuk sold her. Dohyun calls Sunghyuk to a meeting. Not to the office, but to the old family home where they grew up. A cold, empty room that smells of dust and the past. Sunghyuk comes in with a slight, mocking smile. Brother, what an unexpected honor. Do you want to remember your childhood? Dohyun doesn't return the smile. He stands in the middle of the room, huge and dark. What did you say to Johanna? His voice is low, dangerous. Sunghyuk feigned surprise. Me? I was just expressing my concern for my ex-daughter-in-law, like always. Don't lie to me! Dohyun's voice boomed, echoing in the empty hall. You sent Jang Min-ho to her with some papers. What was that? Sunghyuk loses his mask of indifference. His eyes narrow. Ah, so you already checked. Quickly, well then. I just showed her the truth. The truth you kept from her. What truth? Dohyun growls, taking a step forward. That you knew about her pregnancy before the divorce, Sunghyuk shouts, his voice brimming with pent-up anger. That you ordered it covered up. That your infertility diagnosis was just a convenient excuse to get rid of her when she was no longer needed. And now, when an heir is needed, you're hanging around like a dog. Dohyun looks at him, and there's not anger in his eyes, but something worse. Icy contempt. Have you really sunk that low? Forging documents? Lying to a pregnant woman to play your dirty games? It's not a lie. Sunghyuk takes a step forward, his face twisted. You're always in control. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I don't see how much you miss her? How broken you are? I just sped up the process. I showed her who you really are. A selfish, cold businessman who sees people as nothing but tools. A child doesn't need a father like that. Do you really need an uncle like that? Dohyun asks quietly. The kind who uses his future nephew as a bargaining chip in a power struggle? They stand nose to nose, two brothers separated by years of envy and resentment. I'm protecting her from you, Sunghyuk hisses. You're ruining her, Dohyun screams back. You sowed such hatred and fear in her that she trusts no one anymore. You took away my chance. His voice breaks. You took away my child's chance to have a father. There's so much real, raw pain in his voice that Sunghyuk takes a step back for a second. He sees not an all-powerful brother, but a broken man. Where are the originals of these documents? Dohyun asks, regaining his composure. They were destroyed, Sunghyuk says defiantly. You lied then, and you're lying now. You're keeping everything, just in case. I'll find them, and I'll find the doctor who diagnosed me that way. And then we'll see who's the liar here. He turns and leaves, leaving Sunghyuk alone in the cold hall. His brother realizes he's crossed the line, and that Dohyun won't stop until he finds the real truth, the whole truth.